What does it mean that our hardships are our pathway to inner peace? Welcome back to the Serenity Journey. My name is James, and today we're talking about the Serenity Prayer, and we're at the part where it says, accepting that hardships are the pathway to peace. Today we're going to talk about our hardships and how they can bring us to a greater sense of inner peace and turmoil, and the difference between the people that find peace through our hardships and the people that find self-destructive behaviors through their hardships. Let's dive in and get started. Before we dive in, for those of you that have been following us for a while, my daughter had surgery at the end of September, and we've been through a lot of hardships since that time. It's funny how these synchronicities happen, because as I came up to this point in my videos, we went through a lot of hardships that took me away from my YouTube channel, that took me away from my online business, and all the other things that we're doing. So as we've been going through here, one of the things that I've been looking at is what are the key areas of hardships that create turmoil in our life. As we dive in, we start realizing that there's 4 key areas of our lives that we have the most conflict. These 4 areas contain the majority of the struggles that we face in our lives. So as we go through, we have to start learning how to revamp these areas and how we relate in each of these areas within ourselves. Let's go through those 4 areas real quickly. The first one is in our relationships. It can be in our intimate relationships, our partnerships, our family relationships, our friendships and acquaintances. But when we have hardships in our relationships, these can create destructive forces in our lives. Second is our career, how we make money. You know, we all have career choices that we have to make, and some people face a lot of hardships in their careers, in how much money they're able to bring in, and how they're finding sense of fulfillment and joy and happiness in the careers that they're in. Me personally, I've had jobs that I didn't really ever consider them careers, but they were jobs that paid the bills. But sometimes that's all they did, was barely pay the bills, and sometimes we had to get extra help because they didn't even do that much for us. But throughout it all, we had choices that we made in the area of our careers that created some conflict and hardships in our lives. The second area is in our finances. You know, the career is really kind of how we bring in our money. When I talk about personal finance, we're talking about how we spend our money, where it goes. We have a lot of hardships sometimes in not having enough coming in or going out, or having too much going out, or having different things. So this creates a lot of conflict and hardships in our lives, especially when we make bad decisions in how we manage what we have coming in. So the next area of hardship that we want to talk about is the area of our health. We have our health and our well-being, and this creates a lot of hardship in a lot of people's lives. Unfortunately, when we don't take care of our bodies, when we don't take care of our health, and even when we try to, sometimes our bodies just don't cooperate. There's a lot of factors involved in our health. Some of them are choices and things that we can control, but there's a lot of things that are environmental, things we really can't control. Things in our environment, some things that are in our genetics. There's things that we can't control that affect our health. But there's a lot of things we can control, and we need to focus and put our time and attention on those things in order to overcome the hardships that come in those areas. Now, whenever we talk about health too, we have to talk about that there's different areas of health. It could be our physical health, it can be our mental health, it can be our emotional health, it can even be our spiritual health. We have healthy habits and behaviors in each one of these areas that can be healthy or unhealthy, that can create turmoil and dysfunction in our lives if we don't take care of them. So we're going to be talking about how to do that in just a few minutes. Now we're going to cover each of these 4 areas more in depth in more videos. In fact, there's whole channels dedicated to each one of these areas of our lives that we watch ourselves and that we learn from and grow from. But as we dive into each of these 4 areas of our lives, we find most of the conflict that we face, and most of the conflict and the crises that we face in our lives fall into each one of these 4 categories of our lives. But how do we turn the hardships that we face in these 4 categories into inner peace? That's what I really want to talk about today. The first of these first of all, we have to realize that each one of these is about the mindset and the relationship that we have to each of these aspects of our lives. We have our relationships. Really, the key to our relationships is our relationship to those people. Our relationship to our career is really about our mindset, about our career, our focus, and what we're looking for. And when we talk about career too, we can talk about career as in our job and what we do for a living, but it's also what we do in service to others. We can also have, areas and fall into this category, those things that we do that aren't really bringing in money, but the things that we do of service to others, things like community organizations and other programs. In our finances, it's all about our budgeting and how we control our money and how much we allow other people to control us, how much dependency we have on debt and other things. And this can be a huge area of our lives, and I can do whole channels dedicated to personal finance and budgeting and how to do that. But we'll talk a little bit about how this area of our life creates conflict and how we find peace within ourselves with what we have going out and how we control that and minimize and kind of live personally, I like to live kind of a somewhat minimalistic lifestyle as far as how much we have going out and how much we have to have coming in order to really survive in this crazy world that we live in. When it comes to our health, we have different aspects of our health and our relationship to our own body and to what we do with our body and how we can control it. And there's a lot of things that we can't control about our health, but there's a lot of things that we can control. So as we face our own hardships and as we go through trying to help people find peace through their hardships, the key to understanding it is understanding your own mind. All of these hardships are all based about your perception of the conditions that you face in each one of these areas of your life. For example, your relationships might be in turmoil. I've had a lot of turmoil in my own relationships, but a lot of it was because of my own mind and the way I was perceiving my relationships with other people. My career choices, my career issues have been struggles that I've had in a lot of areas of my life, but a lot of it has been my own perception of my career and how I dealt with it. My finances, I've had hardships in my finances because of my own bad decisions financially. And until I took responsibility for that and I started changing how I managed my finances and how we spent money and started doing more budgeting and getting ourselves onto a plan, it started working to where our money was working for us instead of working against us, and started managing where the money was going, got ourselves out of debt and got ourselves moving in the right direction and having money set aside for emergencies. These kind of things started changing our perception around how money worked, and by doing that and changing our perception of money, we were able to get our personal finances in order and get ourselves to a place where I could do things like create a YouTube channel and put money and time and effort into making videos to help other people like you. It also made weathering this pandemic a lot easier, even though it came with some conflict and some difficulties. It made it a lot easier because we didn't have hardly any debt, and we had no debt except for our mortgage, really, and because we were in a financial position at the start of the pandemic to be able to weather the storms that were coming our way. Whenever these crises hit in other areas and you have yourself set up in financial unity, it doesn't create a financial crisis at the same time you have other crises as well. When we started dealing with some of these health issues that started coming up with Emily, started with having surgery, then we had complications from the surgery and we were in and out of the hospital for the last few weeks. A lot of it came down to having to take time off work, which affected the career. Taking time off of work and career affected the finances. It also put some stress on our relationship. So having that crisis in one area kind of bled over to each of the other areas as well. But along the way, we've been able to develop new skills in each one of these areas, come up with new plans and ideas, and move forward with them in a better place of peace of mind. We also develop new skills that we've not only used ourselves, but share some of those skills with other people along the way. Physical skills, nursing skills that we learned from having the type of cast that she had, that we were able to pass on to nurses and other people, as well as just being able to shift how we care for Emily and what we have to do for her. But by doing all this, now we're in a more peaceful place, and we're able to weather different storms that come our way because we have new strategies in place. We have new ways of looking at things. Now, we could have taken this situation that we've had recently with Emily and used it as a way that defeated us and took it as a negative experience. Or we could take it as a positive experience, as an opportunity to grow as parents, as caretakers, as human beings. Even as a content creator here on YouTube, I've been able to learn and think about some new strategies and new ways of doing things that have really helped me to find more of that peace that I've been looking for in my own life, and coming to terms with what I did. One is several principles that we talk about that help us to find peace through these hardships. One, appreciation and gratitude. Gratitude is an appreciation for the things that we do have, and when we have that gratitude and are able to remember that gratitude, it helps us to weather these storms a little bit easier. Another one is humility. One of the biggest principles that I see a lot of people missing out on in a lot of our culture is honestly humility. And we see humility in a lot of different ways, but when we face these hardships, it really humbles us, and it helps us to have a greater sense of gratitude and appreciation, and it helps us to find a better sense of peace and well-being within ourselves when we face it with a humble attitude and not trying to have to be the expert at everything, and being able to accept that these hardships are going to take us out of the flow of positivity that we try to live in. We're looking for those opportunities for growth. And honestly, one of the keys to understanding the mind is understanding that in our mind, what we are looking for is what we will find. So if we're looking for defeatism, if we're looking for negativity, if we're looking for something to tear us apart and to drive us down, we will find that. But if we're looking for opportunities for growth, we will find those opportunities, and we'll take a different perspective and a different way to approach these waves. So look at each of these 5 areas of your life and write down where you're at in yourself with these aspects of your life and in relationship to them, and then start figuring out what it is you want out of these aspects of your life, and start figuring out how we can change those ways. Let me know how you're doing in each of these 4 aspects of your life. I really want to know what you're going through and what we can focus on to help you improve the life that you want and find more peace.